Number 5, the plagues of Egypt. So coming up first is going to be the plagues of Egypt, a classic, horrifying biblical story for Bible fans of all ages. While the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, the good Lord was trying to show the ruling pharaoh at the time that he'd better let all of the chosen people go or there'd be some serious trouble. Now the pharaoh didn't heed the warning and was divinely punished 10 times, one for each of the pharaoh's false gods. Now maybe you've heard through cultural osmosis that there was a rain of frogs and locusts, but unless you've spent some time in between the pages of the Bible, do you know all the other horrific plagues? Because there was 10 of them, a lot of horror going on. Let's go through them in order. First up, we had the Nile River running red with gore, resulting in dead fish and undrinkable water. Plague number 2, the frogs. You know what a frog is, I don't need to explain that, they're like these little green guys. Then came the lice, next plague, then the flies, kind of similar to the lice really, and then the big livestock plague. This one was kind of fun. It killed off large swaths of farm animals, chickens, cows, others, dead. Then we had everybody's favorite plague, the boils. Painful, disgusting red sores and boils manifesting on the Egyptian skin. Scrumptious. Now the boils were cooled by the next plague, which was a scourge of hail that destroyed the crops and lands that gave life. And then the locusts came. Everybody loved the locusts. They're like little bugs that eat everything. The next plague was a thick, never-ending cloud of darkness, which was probably fantastic for vampires and real dour for anybody else. Now, if you've been keeping track at home, that's 9 plagues, meaning we got one last plague, and that's the death of all firstborns, which afflicted every family in Egypt. Finally, a win for the middle children of the world. The good Lord asked all the Israelites to paint a bit of goat fluid on the door to make sure the angel of death knew they were chill, and not to pox any firstborn children. The plagues of Egypt, it's kind of a story that showcases that when you make God angry, he takes that really, really personal. I think that's literally what they mean when people are talking about divine retribution. It's stuff like this. It's plagues of locusts and frogs. And if you're looking for way more scary videos that might be about Insidious, might be about the Bible, we've got all of that and then some on the channel. Seriously, if you can think it up, we got 2 or 3 videos on it. So click on through, hit subscribe, please ring that little bell as well so you don't miss a single one of our videos as soon as they go up. But do that at the end of this video, because I got 4 more stories loosely related to Insidious coming up for you right now. Number 4, the Witch of Endor. Now coming up next is the story of the Witch of Endor. It's not the Witch King of Angmar, the Lord of the Nazgul, and this isn't involving the forest moon of Endor where the shield generator for the second Death Star was built. It also doesn't have a lot to do with Insidious. We've crossed all 3 of those worries off. I'll tell you what the Witch of Endor was. Now the first king of Israel, Saul, who was a notable good man, was facing a severe crisis. He had disobeyed God and was facing an impending war from the Philistines. So in desperation, Saul sought out guidance from God, but was left on divine red by the big man upstairs and was being ignored. His pleas were unanswered. Saul did what any of us would do in a similar situation when you can't get a line to God. In trouble? Better call the Witch of Endor. Oh, did you think I was going to do like a better call? Never mind. Saul rang up the Witch of Endor, a necromancer of some renown who was able to help Saul conjure the spirit of the dead prophet Samuel, hoping to gain a little insight for the upcoming war against the Philistines. Samuel's spirit appeared and spoke to Saul. Samuel's message was a very grim one, letting Saul know that he was not going to do terribly well in this war and was going to lose the war and also die. The prophet reiterated that Saul's disobedience and rejection of God had led to this outcome, you know? Mind your manners, mind your P's and Q's, maybe you won't die in a war. Overwhelmed by the encounter, Saul fell to the ground in despair. The witch then provided him with a meal before he departed. Now the story of the Witch of Endor serves as a cautionary tale against seeking supernatural guidance outside of God. I think that's a pretty easy moral to follow. Don't contact a necromancer. Be careful with your spiritual mediums. Josh Lambert in the first Insidious film got lucky when he contacted a trustworthy medium, and I don't remember the name of that character, but you might not be. So Josh Lambert, King Saul, pretty similar.
Number 3, unicorns. Hold up. This is scarier than the devil, right? Unicorns? Really? Oh yeah. No, not the glittery ones with Farrah Fawcett hair like Hercules rides. More like a firstborn bull. Giant, with a huge spear on its head. He has majesty, and his horns are the horns of a wild ox. And with them he shall gore the peoples, all of them, to the ends of the earth. Okay, yeah, that's really aggressive. I guess unicorns were a little bit scarier in the Bible, huh? A couple times these things are brought up too. It seems like a lot of people were seeing these. Yeah, I'd say a hunk in a suit on a television series is much less scary than a monster horse goring you to death. Arayam is mentioned 9 times in the Hebrew Bible. It's been translated to unicorn in the King James Version, and some translations as oryx, which was seen as a wild ox or rhinoceros. Quote, "And the unicorn shall come down with them, and the bullocks with the bulls, and their land shall be soaked with blood, and their dust made fat with fatness." Yeah. Harsh. I mean, rhinos and other single-horned animals do this. The Bible describes unicorns skipping like calves, traveling like bulls, and bleeding when they die, so they were real and very mortal, mostly believed to be an exaggeration though. Even Julius Caesar speaks of them. Quote, "A little below the elephant in size and appearance, color and shape of a bull, their strength and speed are extraordinary. They spare neither man nor wild beast." Were the ancients seeing like giant extinct rhinos, or were these flying evil narwhals just goring everyone to the end of the earth? Who knows? Sure sounds like it. Number 2, locusts. Dude, I'm already afraid of the 12-inch flying praying mantises that do exist today. I can't imagine what these things looked like. Imagine a dog-sized flying insect blocking out the sun because there's so many of them. Abaddon's locusts. These things were terrifying. The Bible has this to say about them. The 5th angel, apparently Abaddon, sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. When he opened the abyss, smoke rose from it like the smoke from a gigantic furnace. The sun and sky were darkened by smoke from the abyss, and out of the smoke, locusts came down upon the earth and were given power like that of scorpions. These demon bugs are well detailed in the Bible. They're described as, quote, horse-like creatures preparing for battle, adorned with crowns of gold above their head. Their face is like a man, but woman's hair with lion's teeth. Their body was locust-like, covered with iron breastplates. They have scorpion-like stings on their tails and razor-sharp claws, and the sound of their army will be like 1,000,000 horses marching to the battlefield. Dude, that's a locust? Like a locust, the bug? No, I don't think so. They will be freed by their master Abaddon from the bottomless pit and will torment all of the remaining sinners on earth for 5 months. Abaddon is described as the king of the army of locusts. Yeah, guy's really into bugs. Yeah, that's like some Fear Factor stuff right there. Just like 1,000,000 bugs swarming you? No thanks. And coming in at number 1, the dragon. Okay, there's some speculation here that this thing is the devil himself. The devil and the dragon. But also this thing apparently lives with the devil. I don't know, people were saying mixed things, but important thing is, things weren't too literal back then, and they were really spiritual. People were just trying to explain what they were seeing and feeling the best way they could. But yes, there was dragons. Yeah, we have the skeleton bones. Okay? And before you're picturing something fun like Dudley the Dragon or the ones that talk in The Hobbit who sit atop gold. No. Picture when it sneezes, it flashes light. Its eyes are like the red of dawn. Lightning leaps from its mouth. Flames of fire flash out. Smoke streams from its nostrils like steam from a pot heated over burning rushes. Its breath would kindle coals, for flames shoot from its mouth. Yeah, this thing. Terrifying. Tremendous strength of Leviathan's neck strikes terror wherever it goes. Its flesh is hard and firm and cannot be penetrated. Job 41:18-23. This great dragon, the ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, the one deceiving the whole world, was thrown down to the earth with all the angels. And I saw 3 evil spirits that looked like frogs leap from its mouth of the dragon, the beast and the false prophet. They are demonic spirits who work miracles and go out to the rulers of the world to gather them for battle against the Lord on that great judgment day of God the Almighty. He seized the dragon, that old serpent who is the devil, Satan, and bound him in chains for 1,000 years. The angel threw him into the bottomless pit, which he then shut and locked so Satan could not deceive the nations anymore until 1,000 years were finished. Okay, yeah, that sounds like one giant amazing cutscene from a God of War game. Just chucking a dragon into a pit? Also, it's 2022. We better lock that thing back up. It's been more than 1,000 years now, no? Quote, "And behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems." Okay, so it wears 7 crowns. Maybe this thing is the devil. It's mentioned numerous times in the Bible. I've seen Game of Thrones. This thing is scary. Yeah.
In at number 5, Nadab and Abihu burned alive. Nadab and Abihu were brothers chosen to serve the Lord as priests due to their family having a rich pedigree. Their intensive preparation and dedication to serving God. However, when they chose to make an offering to the Lord, they did not know it would be their last. They dressed in their best robes and made their way to the altar to make an offering of incense. It was a known fact that they were forbidden to make unauthorized offerings to the Lord, and it is unknown why they ignored this warning. Once their offering was made, a flame engulfed the altar and the brothers. Onlookers watched as they were burned alive. It is said that these deaths were to show the people that there are no sins too small. The brothers should have known that the incense was an unauthorized gift. Something to keep in mind next time you light some incense in your home. Which I never do, so I'm fine. No one's burning me alive, motherfuckers. Coming in at number 4, John the Baptist is beheaded. Now this one starts with some Kardashian-style family drama. John the Baptist had been imprisoned by Herod the Tetrarch for commenting that it was not right that Herod had divorced his wife Basilis, so that he may take his brother's wife Herodias instead. John commented that it is not lawful for you to have her, which seems like a nice way of putting it. Herod has John imprisoned and was planning on keeping him there. The people saw John as a prophet and Herod didn't want to cause any upset. For his birthday he had a gathering where Herodias' daughters danced for all of the guests. This pleased him and his guests so much he made an oath to grant her anything she wanted. Prompted by her mother, she asked, "Bring me John the Baptist's head on a platter." Herod was disturbed by this, but he had to keep his oath. That evening John the Baptist was beheaded in his cell. His head then brought on a platter to be presented to Herodias and her daughter in front of all of their guests. It is unclear what happened to the head after this, but that is some crazy revenge for gossiping about the family. That's why you should never gossip. Someone might cut out your tongue.
Number 3, the Book of Enoch. Coming up next today is going to be the stories out of the Book of Enoch, an ancient religious text that is attributed to the biblical figure Enoch. Duh. It's the Book of Enoch. I would assume that he wrote the book. Enoch is said to have been allowed to take a little tour of heaven and shown divine visions of the afterlife and the kingdom of God. Now there's a lot of discrepancy from Christian scholars if this book is considered a canonical text, but it is considered very significant and is unsettling. It does have some interesting mythological aspects to dig into. The most well-known portion of this book that people discuss, people talk about, is referred to as the Book of Watchers. This section describes the descent of angels known as the Watchers. Doesn't that sound ominous? Now these angels became obsessed with human women and their beauty, and I mean, come on, can you blame them? Have you seen human women? Va-va-voom! Anyway, these angels settled with human women and they birthed a new race of beings called the Nephilim. Now the Nephilim are described as being these gigantic, monstrous, hybrid human beings. Kind of like, this is a nerdy reference, but if you've ever seen Attack on Titan, those big things, they're kind of like that. Listen to this quote about how they were corrupting humanity. "And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 meters, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds, and beasts, and reptiles, and fish, and to devour one another's flesh, and drink the blood." Enoch was chosen by God to deliver a message of judgment and warning to these fallen angels and their scary giant offspring. He was shown a glimpse of Judgment Day and the establishment of a righteous kingdom on earth, a bright vision of a future where the Insidious franchise is talked about with the same reverence as the Godfather trilogy. Theaters are filling up, people are pre-ordering tickets, they're getting IMAX releases, Blu-rays with special features, there's an extended Insidious universe, it's bigger than The Conjuring, it's crossing over with The Conjuring. Not all of that was in the Book of Enoch, but some of it was. Number 2 is going to be the story of Job. This next story is my personal favorite story from the Bible. I've always found it kind of fascinating, even as an outsider. It's the tragic story of Job. Job is a righteous, God-loving man who lives in the land of Uz. Not like goo, U-Z. Satan, Lucifer, the devil, Beelzebub, Pete Davidson, whatever you want to call him, the devil appears before the Lord one day and proposes a friendly challenge. The devil challenges God and says that Job only reveres the Lord because of the blessing and protection that he enjoys, and that if Job had a terrible life, he wouldn't worship God. So God kind of does one of these and thinks, oh, maybe. So God grants Satan permission to test Job's faith. Seems like a horrible thing to do to one of your subjects, but hey. So Satan rubs his little paws together and gets right to work tormenting Job. Job loses his wealth, Job loses his family, and Job loses his health. However, Job loves the good Lord and his faith does not compromise. So Job's good buddies, his close friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, you know how everybody's got a friend named Zophar, come to comfort Job. But they tell Job that all these things are happening to him because he deserves it. Suffering is a punishment for wrongdoing. Job is like, hey, I didn't do anything wrong. He maintains his innocence and questions why, as a righteous man, he must endure such immense pain. So he presents this case directly to God. He rings him up and to try and understand these reasonings behind his suffering. Why are you doing all this to me? Job remains steadfast that he he's innocent and doesn't deserve any of this. So God responds to Job out of a whirlwind. God speaks to Job, emphasizing his divine power, wisdom, and sovereignty over all this creation. God asks Job a series of rhetorical questions to illustrate how little we as humans really know. And Job realizes this and humbles himself before God, puts himself back in his place. In the end, God kind of undoes a lot of that torment. He gives Job his fortune, his family, and he blesses them with more than he had before. Job's faith is vindicated, and he comes to understand that God's ways are just above and beyond his little Joby human comprehension, and he'll never understand what the big guy's doing up there, but he should just sit back and have it happen. It is presented as a very uplifting, optimistic story about having a never faltering faith, but there's something about a story where the divine creator lets an innocent soul suffer immensely just to prove a point that seems kind of terrifying. It makes humans seem like ants, you know? It's very similar to how the family in the Insidious franchise keeps being tormented, but hey, their faith never falters, and they're always keeping their chins up because the Insidious movies are viable, so they're gonna keep making sequels, and you should see the Insidious, The Red Door, that's coming out in theaters already after this video. They didn't pay us for this. Number 1, the Book of Revelations. The Book of Revelations, also known as the Apocalypse of John, is the final book of the New Testament in the Bible. So there will be some spoilers if you haven't gotten around to reading it yet, so skip ahead to the end of the video if you don't want to ruin it. It's a highly symbolic and apocalyptic text that presents a series of spooky visions and prophecies about the end times and the ultimate victory of God over evil. So our book begins with John identifying himself and stating that he received these visions while in exile on the islands of Patmos. He then addresses 7 letters to churches all over the world, offering praise and admonition and encouragement. But the big chunk of the book, the meat of it, what we're all talking about, is these dramatic visions that John sees. These crazy, literally out of this world, these cosmic battles between angels and demons, these heavenly scenes, these things that look like they could be sweet metal album art or like backgrounds from a Doom game. All these crazy battles with the horsemen of the apocalypse, dragons, the Lamb of God. Oh, big stuff, big, really cool stuff that would look awesome painted on the side of a van. The book describes a great tribulation that will come upon the earth, the apocalypse, marked by natural disasters, plagues, persecution of believers, the rise of a beast, commonly interpreted as a symbol of a tyrannical ruler or empire, and a false prophet who deceives people with miracles and leads them astray. Sounds kind of fun. John sees the ultimate victory of God, though, through all of this. He witnesses the final judgment where the wicked are condemned and the righteous are rewarded, and a new earth is described where God dwells with his people and all suffering and all sorrow are eliminated in this new heaven. And in this new heaven, there's as many Insidious movies as you want there to be. There's endless stories for the Lambert family and that demon that's got like red lipstick on his face and he kind of looks like Darth Maul. And what else happens in the Insidious franchise? I've only seen the first one, but you better see Insidious 5, The Red Door, because it just came out and the Bible was scarier than it.
Number 5, the Behemoth. You wanted 5 more creatures and I wanted an excuse to keep reading this thing. This book is terrifying. Speaking of, did you know that there's a herbivore creature plated in spikes and armor with a tail the size of an oak tree, head like a lion swallowing up rivers, just roaming around back then? Yeah, apparently. The Behemoth. This Goliath of a beast was one of the first talked about. Not the first beast, that's a completely different thing. Also terrifying. The Behemoth. God's secret weapon, and apparently the first thing he created. Hadn't made us in his image yet, so this hippo tank Elder Scrolls boss was what God went with. One of the most popular and revered creatures in the Bible. Quote, "Behold now Behemoth, which I made with thee. He eateth grass like an ox, he moveth his tail like a cedar, his bones are as strong as pieces of brass, his bones are like bars of iron." Yeah, this is definitely a dinosaur, right? Scholars seem to think that the Behemoth is an aggressive exaggeration of a large hippopotamus or rhinoceros. Opening up its mouth and swallowing a river could literally mean it's just an animal thirsty. In 2003, French scientists working in Pakistan claimed to have discovered an extinct species of rhinoceros called a Balak Ethereum, which was much larger, much scarier, and matched the physical description given in the Book of Job. Yeah, that's terrifying stuff. Number 4, cherubim. These cute flying baby angels we see on soap ads and bottles are a lot scarier and much more sinister than the blonde cupids we're used to seeing. The cherubs, or cherubim, are God's throne bearers and appear over 90 times in the Bible. The Hebrew text says cherubim is a celestial winged being who represents God's spirit on earth and symbolizes the worship of God. In Ezekiel, cherubim are described as angelic creatures with 2 sets of wings and 4 faces: lion, ox, human, and eagle. Okay, this is getting scarier and scarier. The 4 faces of the cherubim apparently represent the 4 domains of God's rule. The lion represents wild animals, man represents humanity, ox represents domestic animals, and the eagle represents birds. Aren't those all wild animals? I don't know. The cherubim appear in several texts of the Bible, including Genesis, Ezekiel, Kings, and Revelation. Yeah, so lots of people were seeing these things, and they all kind of sound somewhat the same. They all oddly say 4 faces. Like every which way they turned, they could see a face. Some say, quote, they move quickly, using a wheel within a wheel, and their wings cover their body. Question, what's with all the wheels? People just like looking up into the sky all day must have had like severe floaters in their eyes, because a wheel and a cute baby angel thing look completely different, no? A conjoined wingspan of the 4 cherubim are described as forming a divine chariot, the so-called mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. 2 cherubim make the Ark and form a space through which Yahweh would appear in Ezekiel's visions. The status of the cherubim are a sort of vehicle for Yahweh in the Book of Samuel. So in a sense, they're kind of God's messengers, you know, bringing things up and down from him and to him, including him. Gotcha. A vehicle. Yeah, a vehicle. These images are terrifying. Yeah, and that's a mothership right there. That's a mothership. Okay?
In at number 3, we have King Herod eaten alive. Here is another example of someone upsetting God and paying the ultimate price. King Herod, a different Herod from the last story, was giving a speech to his people as he usually does. On this day, however, while he was speaking, someone cried out, "The voice of God and not of a mortal." He did not refute the claim that he was a god, and it is said that he was instantly struck down by an angel. Angels are savage. We've learnt this on this channel. They're evil. The story goes on that he did not have a quick death. He was in agonizing pain for at least 7 days. It's like it took God 7 days to build the world. Wow. 7's a good number. Like David Beckham. He was number 7. Not that I believe in God, you know. I don't believe in anything. During this time, it is said he was being eaten alive by worms from the inside out. The worms consumed him after 7 days, and this was his slow, painful cause of death. Imagine a worm consuming you. Worms are evil because you can cut them in half, and then they are 2 worms. That's you just created 2 different things. 2 worms. When 2 become 1. When 1 becomes 2. Like, what the That shouldn't be right. Like, you should never be able to cut something in half and then it becomes 2 living things. Anyway, that's and it's worse than The Conjuring. In at number 2, we have Concubine of a Levite. This story is about a Levite who is traveling with his concubine, a second-class wife. Sucks. Imagine being the second-class wife. I only want to be first class. Along his travels, he finds an elderly man who offers to give them shelter for the night in the town of Gibeah. It is a dangerous place no one should be traveling through. Some dangerous men show up at the house looking to have a good time. The Levite and old man decide to offer up the concubine to appease the men, hoping this will keep them safe from the men. The concubine is taken away by the men for the rest of the night. In the morning, the Levite finds the concubine dead outside of where he had been staying. The man is angry for what they've done to her, so he decides to get revenge on the men, so he dices them up. He then sends those pieces to 12 tribes surrounding Gibeah, which leads them to attack the city. Dicing your girlfriend up to get revenge on her murderers doesn't seem like the best idea, but then again, he did offer her up to them in the first place. So, you're in the wrong. You should be in The Conjuring, and I'll possess you. And finally, in at number 1, we have Ezekiel's Army of the Dead. This next one might remind you more of The Walking Dead than a Bible story. Ezekiel was brought by God to a valley that was full of bones. He walked back and forth among the bones until God asked him if these bones could once again live. God then told him to repeat a prophecy to the bones as he told him it. The bones started to move from around him. They began to form and find the other pieces of the body they had lost. Tendons and flesh appeared on them and skin covered them, but they were not breathing, they were not alive. He then told him the final words to speak, and the dead began to wake up and breathe once more. God told him that these are the people of Israel who had been killed. He was bringing them back to take their rightful place back in their land. Ezekiel then had a full undead army to take back their land which they had lost.
Coming in number 5, we've got Puriel. Not to be confused with the top tier hand sanitizer, although I wouldn't be too mad if you made that mistake. This angel does a similar job to the alcohol based cleaning solution. He purifies and eliminates all sorts of unsavory things. Whether or not that's 99% I can't be sure, but here we are anyway. His job is one that not many would really want to do. Puriel is the angel of punishment. One would think that once you made it to heaven there wouldn't really be a need for that kind of thing, but apparently we're wrong. He watches over the prison in heaven, acting as the warden. Who knew? He's also responsible for examining each and every soul that makes it up to heaven after dying. During this spot check, he makes sure that the soul is pure enough to be allowed to pass through. Kind of like a TSA check at the airport, but somehow more invasive. Instead of checking your passport and your luggage and making assumptions based on your appearance and background, they're instead reaching into the depths of your soul. Talk about a cavity search, am I right? If you are fit to enter heaven, he will let you pass, although I'm not so sure you'll be the same person after an experience like that. Fail the test, and out you go. Down to hell or possibly purgatory to cavort with all sorts of other unworthy individuals. Damn, so close too. Puriel is known for being fiery and pitiless too, so don't count on just barely squeezing by. If he doesn't like what he sees, he's gonna drop you from the clouds faster than you can say bless you. Dang. Maybe he does have a lot in common with Puriel. I'm sure he eliminates 99% of potential heavenly residents. I wonder if that could have any long-term implications like hand sanitizer and antibiotics do, you know, by leaving some of the stronger, unsavory bits untouched so that they get stronger and no longer be purified by that regular dose. Super bacteria, here we come. Oh man, did I just compare me and the others unworthy of heaven to bacteria? Gotta work on that self-esteem. Coming in number 4, we've got Simkiel. Dangerously close to Simkiel, this is another remorseless, unrepentant angel. Do not put yourself in her sights lest you be utterly annihilated in seconds flat. One has to wonder how an angel becomes the chief of destruction, although I wouldn't recommend asking Simkiel anything about it. She's likely to just cash in on that title in the wildest way possible. Destruction. In addition to her first title, she also is known as the Angel of Vengeance, which works well with those predetermined traits. Destructive and vengeful seem to go hand in hand quite well. Claim revenge through destruction, destroy upon the path of vengeance. What an angel. Simkiel does spend a good amount of time in heaven, commanding other angels, but will often be called down to earth to chastise and purify sinners. Most folks have a hard enough time being chastised by their teachers and employers. Imagine a literal angel from heaven dropping in to give you an earful. My word. Plus, the way most angels purify sinners isn't pleasant. It's not just radiant light zapping you to righteousness in the same way a UV light might disinfect buffet food. You're probably getting smoten. Straight the hell with your sinful ass. She doesn't always work alone either. Many lesser angels receive Simkiel's orders and follow them with fervor. A whole platoon of vengeful, destructive angels on the lookout for sinners and sinner adjacents. I don't know about you folks watching at home, but I don't think too many righteous and pious people are watching top 5 scary videos. So Simkiel should be on our list of folks to avoid at all costs, as if we could even avoid her in the first place. Oh well, I guess there's only so much you can control in life. Might as well get cleansed by the good guys in the end, right?
Coming in at number 3, we've got Belfagor. And we're back to individual powerful angels. This one in particular is a well-known fallen angel, which tends to be the case a lot of the time. Belfagor is associated with plenty of sinful behaviors. There's greed, sloth, discord, selfishness, and more. Although, let's be real, sloth and greed are the biggest in his books. He likes to give mortals great ideas for inventions, therefore filling their minds with selfish greed. They'll devote great parts of their lives to these plans, forgetting all sorts of other important things. And often, if these inventions come to fruition, they don't actually improve the state of the world all that much. Yeah, it's mostly stuff that extracts more wealth from the world in the laziest and most destructive way possible. Then the inventions will also draw their users into sloth, as they make things a little too easy. Classic Belfagor. Interestingly enough, this isn't a fallen angel who was on Lucifer's side from the start. However, when Lucifer and his supporters staged their rebellion against the heavens, Belfagor didn't explicitly side with God either. For this slight, he was inevitably sent down to hell anyways. Damn, you just can't win, eh? However, as we've seen, he's adjusted quite well. After his fall, he took to being a prince of hell quickly and started doing his best to preside over sloth. At least he's adaptable. Coming in number 2, we've got Mastima. Known for his judgments and punishments of humans, Mastima is one scary angel. He's an arbiter, and you do well not to forget that. If Mastima gets the chance, he'll put you 6 feet under for eternity. Worse yet, he treats his whole job like a sting operation. Instead of sitting back and waiting for humans to do unholy things, he actively tempts mankind with all sorts of stuff to make them act out of turn. That's tough, huh? Like, you'd think you're living your life and then bam, Mastima tempting you with something lovely but sinful. It just doesn't seem fair, does it? But that is what this angel does, and he does it well. Some say that Mastima and Belial are the same entity, just seen from different angles, Belial being the more demonic and Mastima being more angelic. However, their actions are indeed the same, or mostly similar, from leading some of God's armies against angels, to controlling legions of demons to control and tempt humans on Earth. It's even said that Mastima was involved with the Watchers, who ended up causing that massive flood way back when. You know the story. So now Mastima is known as the tester of humans. Even after all of that chaos and mayhem, he's still trusted to do things in the name of God. And I'm not sure which is worse, damning people in the name of Satan or damning people in the name of God. I'd much rather an angel try to help people be better rather than entrapping them and seeing to it that they're sent to hell. But hey, I don't claim to understand how angels work. And finally, at number 1, we've got Lucifer. If we were to tally up every list that Lucifer topped, what do you think the final count would be? It's probably a lot higher than I'm estimating, to be honest. But hey, it's not like his spot at the top is undeserved, right? Lucifer worked hard to earn the recognition of people around the world. Hell, there's even a popular TV series featuring this fallen angel. If you can think of a more famous or more fearsome angel than this, please let me know. But until then, we're putting Mr. L right at the tippy top, over and over again. You know the story. Lucifer was an angel without peer. Nobody could stop him. He was the ultimate in heavenly hunks. But then one day he let his pride take over. Instead of being happy that he was the creme de la creme of angels, he thought about usurping God himself. Wrong move, yeah? After organizing something like 1/3 of all the angels in heaven for an uprising, they got beat by the remaining heavenly bodies and sent down to the underworld. So much hope, so much pride, so little execution. Since then, Lucifer / Satan / the devil has been watching over hell, doing what he can to bring order to the chaos. Someday he may rise up and take revenge upon those who smote him. Until then, though, he's responsible for a whole lot of human folly. Goodness gracious. Coming at number 5, we've got Leviathan. Often associated with adjectives like aquatic and enormous, Leviathan is a word we often hear outside of the context of angels. It's a concept at this point. If something is a Leviathan, it's an enormous sea monster, ready to swallow entire ships whole, prepared to annihilate fleets of submarines, waiting for its chance to appear in a monster movie. But here's the thing, Leviathan isn't just some monstrous figure in the ocean, nor is it simply a huge roller coaster in Vaughn. Leviathan is also a demonic angel. Damn, that's a badass title. Let me tell you some more. The sea monster reputation is well earned, as Leviathan often appears or is described as an enormous sea monster or a gigantic whale. Oftentimes he will destroy ships and other vessels that dare to cross the open sea. Poor sailors, am I right? A lot of folks do end up mixing him up with Behemoth, but we'll let it be for now. There's another roller coaster joke in there somewhere, but I don't have it in me to make it. Leviathan makes appearances throughout ancient texts, from showing up and being described as a Lovecraftian beast with the mere sight of it being overpowering, to a whale that traps another famous character in its belly for 3 days. That first one also details Leviathan's enormous horrible teeth, and a back covered in shiny shield-like scales. That's not all either. Apparently Leviathan can breathe fire, throws smoke from his nostrils, and has eyes that shine so bright they can blind you. My word, that is an incredible biblical beast. And somehow, some way, he's still considered an angel. What a world we live in, right? Then of course there's the tale of Jonah and the whale, and in this case, Leviathan could very well be that whale. We've seen him described as the enormous underwater individual before, so it fits quite well if you think about it. Overall, this is an angel that nobody wants to encounter, even on a good day. Gigantic, predatory, powerful, and full of folks it ate, Leviathan is crazy. It's for the best that it stays deep underwater, away from everyone else. Coming at number 4, we've got Chokydree. Now, instead of listing off 5 specific individual angels, we'll bring in a new group for this one, the Chokydree. Sounds kind of funny, but they're serious business. In some of our earlier angelic videos this year, we discussed the classifications of angels a little bit and found out about all sorts of interesting creatures. Gone was the idea that angels had to be glorious humanoid figures descending from above the clouds to play beautiful tunes upon harps. Angels could be chimeric abominations, too hideous for humans to lay eyes upon. That is just the case with the Chokydree. Oh yeah. To kick it off, let's talk about where these things live. Not in the heavens or above the clouds or anything like that. The Chokydree are so much more hardcore than that. These angels have decided to take up residence in the sun. You know, the enormous ball of fire in outer space that burns bright enough to warm our entire planet from 150 million kilometers away? Yeah, they live there. I'm sure their tans are immaculate. Described as marvelous and wonderful, or in my words, overwhelming and intense, these angels take on very interesting forms. Their feet and tails are like that of a lion, offering up claws and speed unlike most others. Something, everything the light touches is ours, right, Simba? Well, that's only partially true because the Chokydree also have heads like crocodiles, adding in a new measure of deadliness previously unheard of. They're 900 measures in size, whatever that means, and have 12 angelic wings. And for some reason, they seem to be rainbow colored. So a Technicolor lion-crocodile combo with angel wings pops out of the sun from time to time to bring heat, dew, and rays to the folks on Earth. You know what? Maybe they're not so bad after all.
Coming at number 3, we've got Ansiel. Working closely with Simkiel, Ansiel is another tough cookie straight out of the clouds. With a name meaning the constrainer, one can assume that nothing good comes from being constrained. Images of prison, the inability to move, and possibly even Stockholm Syndrome are evoked, are they not? All that being said, it's tough to think that an angel who makes regular use of constraints is anyone's safe haven, unless you're a regular on a smutty roleplay blog, and in that case, you do you. Ansiel isn't all that bad though. He's often invoked to prevent forgetfulness and stupidity, which, to be honest, we could all use a hand with from time to time. However, if someone were to rely on angelic intervention regularly to keep them in line, well, what hope did they even have in the first place? Apparently, Ansiel is known for having a very short temper when it comes to these two traits, however, so those who need his help the most are likely to be held in contempt by him. Maybe find a new job, right? Humorless and hard to get along with, Ansiel is an excellent soldier. In fact, he's one of Michael's greatest warriors, which means if anyone is ever to step to him, things will end very badly for them. Watch out and try to keep tabs on stuff you're supposed to remember. If you fail at this, you could find yourself restrained, constrained, and in Ansiel's bad books. Coming at number 2, we've got Gabriel. Now we're talking about the big ones, the archangels. Gabriel in particular can be a real pain to deal with. The youngest of the archangels, he is known as the messenger of God. He heralds major changes and brings news from the heavens. So if you run into Gabriel, you can be assured that something monumental is about to happen. You'd better listen closely though, because he doesn't suffer fools. In fact, if he senses that you're not paying close enough attention, he might just silence you forever. That's almost what happened to Zechariah. When Gabriel descended to announce the birth of John the Baptist, Zechariah initially reacted poorly. Seeing this, Gabriel got angry. So angry that he threatened to take away Zechariah's voice. He said, "I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and bring this good news. But now, because you did not believe my words, you will become mute, unable to speak until the day these things occur." Man, I can only imagine what happens when he gets into an actual argument with someone. For a being with divine powers, he sure has a short temper. Plus, as God's messenger, Gabriel is going to be the first to show up if God ever decides to call this all quits. It's more likely than you think, too. Humans are sinful and often turn to other forces these days, and in so many movies, Gabriel is the big bad guy who causes all sorts of problems for humanity. When you're the first angel to show up, you'd better believe you're going to catch a lot of folks off guard. And finally, at number 1, we've got Michael. To cap off our list, the head archangel himself. He's the one powerful enough to push Lucifer out of heaven. He's the one strong enough to end the angelic war. He's the one righteous enough to prevent Samael from tearing a baby from its mother's womb. Nothing can stop Michael save for God himself, so why would he be on this list? Well, that kind of unchecked power can never be good, now can it? As the most powerful angel in creation, he has control over all of the other angels. God leaves him in his stead to rule over the kingdom of heaven, and if Michael were to ever change things up, it's unlikely that anyone would be able to do anything about it. If Michael looks down and deems our world unworthy, we're done for. Game over. The Book of Revelation will come to fruition and all mortals will suffer before being cleansed from the earth. It's good to know, right?
In at 5, Mammon. In the New Testament of the Bible, Mammon is a fallen angel. His name is thought to mean money, material, wealth, or any entity that promises wealth. He's essentially the embodiment of the cardinal sin, greed. Sounds like a swell guy. He is associated with the greedy pursuit of gain. I quote, "You cannot serve both God and Mammon." He is often personified as a deity and is included amongst the 7 princes of hell. According to some readings, he is the son of Lucifer himself, conceived before his father fell from heaven and born after he was sent to hell. Before his fall from grace, I quote, "He was more interested in heaven's golden pavement than its celestial leader. From the underworld he comes up with schemes to manipulate humans into adding to his fortune. He is supposedly so powerful that innocent humans can be corrupted by him, adding to his treasures and fortunes instead of virtues that they can carry up to heaven." In at 4, Abaddon. Abaddon is known as the angel of the bottomless pit, one of the many fallen angels we have on our list. In the New Testament book of Revelation, Revelation, they are described as the king of an army of locusts, as well as Destroyer, the angel of the abyss. As the king of locusts, he has an army resembling horses with crowned human faces, women's hair, lion's teeth, wings, iron breastplates, and a scorpion stinger. Nasty. Many believe Abaddon to be the Antichrist, but others identify him as the angel as Satan. According to Revelation 9:1-11, after the fifth angel sounds his trumpet, a star falls from heaven and opens the bottomless pit. As a storm of smoke arises, and from the smoke a plague of locusts emerge to torment, but not kill, men who lack the seal of God on their foreheads for 5 months. His origin gets a little hazy, making him appear to be the servant of God, yet also a servant of Satan. I guess it's up to you what you believe.
Coming in number 3, we've got the false prophet. Whether this is actually an angel or not is a point of contention, but I believe that this presence is employed by the heavens regardless, so we'll allow it. This beastly brute will arrive just in time to sway the hearts of weaker humans, and then condemn them for falling to his trickery. During the divine trumpet solo, a horrifying beast will emerge from the sea, killing many. However, the beast will be injured after this. Once that is complete, the false prophet will rise. This entity will force anyone around to worship the first beast, causing him to be branded with the mark of the beast, or 666. Any who comply will be damned, of course, and will also suffer immensely once the plagues from the bowls rain down. But really, did any mortal have a choice in the matter? The beast from the sea is powerful enough to frighten anyone into submission, so what else are they supposed to do? During a rain of hellfire like that, there's not too much in terms of rational thinking or hope. I suppose it's a test to see if those who are truly devoted to God are ready to simply die with the knowledge that they'll be saved. But still, that is a hardcore trust test. Coming in number 2, we've got the of Babylon. Another questionably angelic figure, but one who appears nonetheless. As chaos reigns around the world, the of Babylon will descend upon humanity riding a beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. She will be drunk on the blood of martyrs and saints and looking for a good time. And by good time, I do mean blood. This is interesting, as this particular figure seems to be representative of a political movement at the time. Scholars often accept her as a symbol for Rome, with 7 heads representing the 7 hills of Rome and the 10 horns standing in for the 10 emperors who seem to be pushing for a less Christian world. So even if this promiscuous beast rider wasn't an angel from heaven herself, she represented something that God would have abhorred. And in being a symbol to rally against and hate, this Babylonian beauty probably steered folks back in the direction those at the church appreciated. Interesting, right? And finally, at number 1, we've got Abaddon, God's chosen angel of death, the supposed location of the lake of fire, and a legendary name overall. This figure is said to have released the locusts mentioned earlier. A swarm of locusts probably isn't that bad in the grand scheme of things. They can block out the sun and eat all your crops, but that is a minor setback. However, Abaddon's locusts, that's a whole other story. These hellish insects are ready to go to war. They're said to appear as war horses with human heads and thorny crowns. With long flowing hair and teeth as sharp and strong as a lion's, they're instructed to torture anyone without the sign of God on their forehead for 5 long months. It seems a little excessive, but here we are. This is an angel who's all about cleansing the world of impure people through death, and the fact that he also commands these hordes of nightmare bugs only serves to intensify his wicked reputation. If there's an angel better known for cruelty and unforgivingness, let me know.
Number 5, Nephilim. This one I can get behind for sure. How the pyramids were built still baffles me, and reading all about these things at least makes my brain relax for a second. The giants, the talls, the long neck people, the Nephilim. Again, never been a Bible guy myself, so no judgment if you say all this happened, but I'm just catching up on all this stuff. But in short, the Nephilim were like the offspring of angels and human women, according to Genesis 6:1-4 and Jude. The Nephilim are also mentioned in Numbers 13:33, but it is likely that by this time in Israel's history, Nephilim was used as a term for a tall, intimidating peoples. It's plausible that the Nephilim were both half angels and half giants, making them absolutely huge and absolutely super strong. The Nephilim were the children of the sons of gods and daughters of men, and Christian scholars have theorized that the sons of gods were actually these demonic fallen angels who reproduced with women. Being the offspring of partial angelic heredity, the Nephilim were considered mighty men who are of old the men of renown. The ancients. These people were huge, claiming that they were like 5 times the size of an average man. In the Hebrew Bible, a group of mysterious beings or people of unusually large size and length who lived both before and after the flood were called Nephilimus, sometimes translated to giants. Even the fallen ones from the Hebrew Nephil, meaning to fall. Seems like these people were writing about similar stuff, huh? Spooky. Number 4. 200 million horsemen. This next one is not really a creature as much as it's the end of a lot of all of us. All this Armageddon stuff they were saying, that's some pretty strange stuff that's on its way. Book of Revelation stuff, you know? Quote, I saw as God wanted to show me the horses and the men on them. The men had pieces of iron on their chests. These were red like fire and blue like the sky and yellow like sulfur. The heads of the horses looked like the heads of lions. Fire and smoke and sulfur came out of their mouths. 1/3 part of all man was killed by the fire and smoke and sulfur that came out of their mouths. Word for word. Horsemen or ancient biblical technology? This sounds horrifying. Also, 200 million? That's a lot of flying flaming horses just trucking around the skies and sands like giant tanks, firing fire out of their mouths and nose. As I looked, behold, a stormy wind came out of the north, and a great cloud with brightness around it, and fire flashing forth continually, and in the midst of the fire, as it were gleaming metal. And from the midst of all this came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had a human likeness. Okay. You put a Baja hoodie on me at a Dave Matthews concert and hear me saying all that stuff, you probably just think I'm some sci-fi stoner. Nope. This is riveting material, folks. I need to read this thing front to back. Apparently this force was supposed to have taken out or is going to take out 1/3 of the entire world's population. I know like 3 things that can do that. Pandemics, missiles, and floods. However, if men and horses showed up with lion heads breathing fire, it's safe to say it's game over.
In at 3, Agarus. Agarus is a demon described in demonological grimoires as a duke, under the power of the East, an old man riding upon a crocodile and carrying a hawk on his fist. Agarus is known to teach languages, however he also stops and retrieves runaways, causes earthquakes, and grants noble titles. Now I shouldn't technically be saying he, because Agarus can be a man or a woman. If the demon is a man, the man is old and riding said crocodile. If the demon is a woman, she is young and angelically beautiful. Now it's surprising how many demons are teachers. They instruct those they visit or possess, and grant knowledge and power, so I guess it's not all bad. The exorcists seem to miss out that little nugget of information. Now, although this demon is downright evil, he or she will grant you the knowledge of every language in the world. However, the bad news, he or she will only teach you the foulest and most offensive words, so say bye bye to your friends, I guess. Yeah, you'll be educated, but you will be vile beyond belief. So, you'll be me. In at 2, Renov. In demonology, Renov is described as a Marquis and the Great Earl of Hell, hence why he is number 2 on our list. This dude commands 20 legions of demons, making him one of the most notorious demons throughout history, one that you certainly don't want to be messing around with. Now, what makes him quite the enigma is that yes, he's awful, the worst, but he's also somewhat of a scholar. He teaches art, rhetoric languages, and gives loyal servants the favor of friends and foes. Now, you may be familiar with this demon, as he is the one who wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is horrible enough, but what makes this demon truly terrible is that he is the taker of old souls. Basically, this means anyone who is older looking, or looks a little under the weather, Renov will claim them. Also, pets are not immune to this. He will kill them too. Your best option is just to steer clear of all your elderly relatives, and consider getting a new, younger looking pet. Just saying, they gotta go. And finally, coming in at number 1, Baphomet. This name may ring a bell for you, and that's because Baphomet is a deity that the Knights Templar were falsely accused of worshipping, following which time it was subsequently incorporated into occult and mystical traditions throughout history. It first appeared in trial transcripts for the Inquisition of the Knights Templar beginning in 1307, which resulted in it being popularized in the English language in the 19th century during debate and speculation on the reasons for the suppression of the Templars. The appearance of Baphomet is that of a goat, an image drawn by Eliphas Levi, which contains binary elements representing the sum total of the universe. More interesting still, this picture of Baphomet is often used as a stand-in for Satan by Satanists and Christians alike. Now, it is a highly debated topic about whether this demon was truly good or bad, but if we look to historical accounts, Baphomet comes from a letter written by a French crusader in 1098. He describes the crusaders' enemies in the Holy Land, I quote, calling upon Baphomet prior to battle. Baphomet refers to Muhammad, the prophet. European Christian dogma Mastima viewed the worship of Muhammad as idolatry, which was harnessed by a medieval European ruler in the form of a witch hunt targeting his political opponents.
Coming in number 5, we've got trumpeting angels. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a good trumpet solo. It's a beautiful instrument with so much room for expression and range. However, these angels aren't likely looking to play some blues scales, nor are they going to run through a sorrowful ballad. They're playing these trumpets as a way to kick off the horrifying festivities of the end of the world. The 7 trumpets shall be played by 7 angels, each of which marks the beginning of something terrible. This all happens after humanity has already been reduced to tatters and folks are living in caves, so hot start. But it does get hotter, because the trumpets are supposed to raise hell. Let's run through all 7 and see how we feel. The first trumpet rings out loud and clear, summoning a storm of hellfire. Hail, fire, and boiling blood will rain from the skies upon those still present on earth. This is so spicy hot that all the grass and trees still standing will be burned down to nothing. Anyone outside of their cave dwelling will be cooked too. Now, you might be thinking that the sea is a good, safe place during all of this, but not so, as the second trumpet begins the process of breaking down a burning mountain and setting all the pieces into water, reducing the wildlife to blood and destroying any human-made vessels. Trumpet number 3 fells a star named Wormwood, sending it careening down to Earth. When it touches down, it poisons a portion of all the waters on Earth, whether they be rivers, lakes, oceans, or streams. There are stark few comforts left at this point, but things can get worse. All of the light from the sun and stars disappears at the sound of the 4th trumpet, which can't be very well received by the folks still surviving. After darkness reigns, an eagle will swoop down and warn folks of the next trumpets and their consequences. Number 5 brings about another fallen star, this one carrying a plague of locusts that are meant to torment any non-believers. Now here's where things get really dire. Trumpet 6 unleashes 4 very special, very violent angels. This fearsome foursome will send 200 million horsemen down to Earth to cut through a third of humanity using fire, smoke, and sulfur. Holy smoke, they're not messing around. Worse yet, their horses barely resemble anything equine. They're chimeric abominations with heads of lions, snake-like tails, and horrible breath. Lastly, number 7 kicks off a brand new set of tortures for those who remain on Earth, led by another set of awful angels. Let's talk about that in the next entry. Coming in number 4, we've got the 7 bowls. The trumpets were just a warning, a sign of things to come. And while the angels who played these deadly instruments are bad, the angels in charge of these heavenly bowls are so much worse. Plus, they look like they're bringing down holy offerings, which gives folks false hope before realizing what's actually going on. So 7 angels take up 7 bowls or vials or whatever vessel you can imagine and bring the contents down to Earth. They then begin pouring whatever's inside down upon the ground, and then things go really sour. Inside these bowls resides pain and torture, plague and disease. Anyone who made it through the trumpeting will then be annihilated without remorse. Folks develop oozing sores, rivers are filled with blood, people literally combust on the spot. It's all very wild. And the fun doesn't stop there either. As plagues spread through the world and those who have sinned suffer lifetimes of pain, even more madness is poured by these bowl-bringing angels. After the Euphrates River dries up, battles between kings of the world will begin and more lives will be lost. And to top everything off, the bowls bring about the most powerful and destructive earthquake that mankind will ever see. No disaster to date will compare to the chaos whipped up by this massive quake, leveling entire cities in seconds, opening up enormous chasms in the earth, and generally making it really hard to have a good time. Damn. So what at first appears to be a reward for surviving the trumpeteers actually becomes an ever greater punishment. These angels literally split the world apart with the quake after implementing all sorts of legendary suffering. Jeez Louise, I thought these guys were supposed to protect and watch over humanity, not absolutely annihilate everyone.
In at 3, Belfagor. Belfagor, along with a few other numbers on our list, is a demon and one of the 7 princes of hell. His powers are of seduction, seducing people with money and inventions, promising endless riches. His role as a demon is to turn humans against each other through means of wealth. He uses our gluttonous desires to drive man to evil, promising fortune in the end. Other reports label him as hell's ambassador to France.
or title, and his adversary is Saint Mary Magdalene, one of the patron saints of France. His origin is that of a fallen angel and a false god that Moses handed down the death penalty for worshipping. He was dispatched to earth by Satan to deceive mortals, often taking the form of a beautiful woman, typically naked. Although sometimes he can appear as a demon, sporting leathery flesh, horns, sharp teeth, and a gaping mouth, ready to destroy mankind. In at 2, Beelzebub. Identified in the New Testament, Beelzebub is the prince of demons. He holds a high position in Hell's hierarchy and supposedly led a successful revolt against the devil. He is the chief lieutenant of Lucifer, the emperor of Hell, and is often placed among the 3 most prominent fallen angels, the others being Lucifer and Leviathan. He is capable of flying, which is the worst, and is known as the Lord of the Fires or the Lord of the Flies. Beelzebub is rumored to be responsible for many demonic possessions throughout history. One of the most famous is the possession of Anneliese Michael, a teenager who was diagnosed with epilepsy before a number of exorcisms were later performed, eventually resulting in her death. Beelzebub was also believed to be sowing his influence in Salem, Massachusetts. His name was repeatedly mentioned during the Salem witch trials. And finally, in at number 1, Lucifer. In classical mythology, Lucifer, meaning the bringer of light, was the name of the planet Venus, though in many cases Lucifer was represented as a winged child pouring light from a jar, or even a man bearing a torch. Now in Christianity, as we know, Lucifer became so obsessed with his own beauty and intelligence that he began to desire the honor and power that belonged to God, corrupting him and forcing God to cast him down to the underworld. It is also noted that once he was cast down, he changed his name from Lucifer to Satan, meaning adversary, and following the second coming of Christ, he was bound to the pits of hell during the 1,000-year millennial kingdom over which Christ ruled. All in all, Satan is widely known as the devil himself, an evil entity that seduces humans into sin. He possesses power over the fallen world and a host of various demons. In Judaism, Satan is regarded as an agent subservient to God. There is no answer to whether Lucifer and Satan are 2 separate entities or whether Lucifer's fall from heaven created Satan, but an examination of several passages reveals that he can be none other than Satan, the devil himself. In at 5, Aquil. Now there is very little known about Aquil, but what we know is that he is the demon who presides over Sundays and exists within Christian mythology. His purpose is to destroy and degrade the practice of keeping the Sabbath holy, which might not sound absolutely terrible, but if this dude possesses the wrong person, it could be bad news bears for all of us. Imagine the president, a prime minister, even one senator possessed, and suddenly we have to work 7 days a week without a single day off. Yeah. Okay, it's a stretch, but there's a reason he is at our number 5. Honestly, no one wants to work long weekends. Just saying. Also, apologies in advance if I pronounce all these names wrong. I'm not a demon. Shh. In at 4, Sergat. Now, Sergat is a minor demon referenced in the grimoire of Pope Honorius, but this does not diminish the fact that he is straight up evil. He is listed as, I quote, Sergat who opens all locks, and his opposite is actually our previous number, Aquil. So before we even get into this demon, we should discuss how many demons are actually mentioned in the Great Grimoire of Honorius. Who was he? Historians aren't even sure, but they do think that he was Honorius III, who was the Pope from 1216 to 1227. Now, no one is quite sure if he wrote the book or not, but he is famous among popes for deliberately conducting ceremonies to summon demons so he could banish the demons back down to hell. A little odd. This dude does not mess around. Now, how does Sergat come into play? Well, as previously mentioned, he makes appearances in the Grimoire of Honorius, and he is incredibly deceptive and cunning, making him one of the most terrifying demons throughout history. And in the Bible. Yeah, he's there too. Now, as quoted before, this dude is known as the one who opens all locks, which essentially means he is capable of understanding and opening any and all locks in the entire world, making it almost impossible to escape him or conceal yourself from him. When someone becomes Sergat's target, he relentlessly pursues them no matter how hard they try to escape, and once he reaches his victims, he frightens them by presenting them with images that result in them going mad. Yikes, don't summon this bad boy.
Number 3, the Leviathan. Okay, at first I was like, oh, that's a roller coaster at Canada's Wonderland. No, this vicious monster was actually modeled after this vicious monster. The Leviathan, the second of the great monsters described in the Book of Job. This Leviathan, is an absolute massive sea monster who's impervious to human weapons, breathes fire, and emits smoke from his nostrils. So this is a Zelda boss for sure. The Leviathan is probably related to another ancient monster called Lotan, a 7-headed giant serpent who represents primeval chaos, as with pretty much every other biblical creature does. Hey, these things aren't meant to be cute and fuzzy. There's some less exciting theories that insist surface, the Leviathan is just a dramatic interpretation of a crocodile or anaconda or maybe a plesiosaur, resembling something like the Loch Ness Monster. But that doesn't explain the breathing fire thing, or the size. Was this giant sea snake a water dragon? Because apparently it's like 300 miles long. Yeah, terrifying. Scary thing now is many different religions and cultures have their own version of the Leviathan. Tiamat, Hydra, Jormungandr. Maybe this thing was just hunted into extinction. I don't know. What do you think? Number 2, Archangel Michael. It is said that the angels are not humans, but creatures made from God's creation. I've also seen what the Bible describes angels looking like, and it's not handsome people with wings. Apparently a lot of these things, people really couldn't even describe what they were seeing in front of them. But we'll get to what these things look like in a minute. Of those creatures, Satan, aka Lucifer, is one. The one. However, here is even one creature that Satan fears more than any creature, and that's fellow Archangel Michael. Or Saint Michael. Some say they're brothers, some say they were on the same team for a bit. This is some good stuff, people. Quote, "Now war arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But he was defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him." Revelation 12:7-9. Okay, so hold on. He and them are all down here with us? That's terrifying. Apparently Michael led that army that won, so whatever scares Satan scares the hell out of me as well. Also, all these pictures and statues of him and like window panes are all of him like wielding a giant sword made of light, just stepping on Satan's back as a hero. That's pretty intimidating, not gonna lie. And coming in at the number 1 spot, Ophanim. Okay, so what angels actually looked like apparently was like giant geometrical feathers with eyes and a consciousness. Some had horns, some had hooves, lots of gold and metal colors. This next thing doesn't even make sense to my brain. I feel like this is an anthill trying to understand an iPhone. Quote, "As I looked at the living creatures, I saw a wheel on the ground beside each creature with its 4 faces. This was the appearance and structure of the wheels. They sparked like topaz, and all 4 looked alike. Each appeared to be made like a wheel, intersecting a wheel. As they moved, they would go in any one of the 4 directions the creatures were faced. The wheels did not change direction as the creatures went. Their rims were high and awesome, and all 4 rims were full of eyes all around." Ezekiel 1:15-18. First off, is this thing even a creature? Yeah, everything I see here is an alien. Is this just us trying to process some sort of like energy being with eyes? Because if I saw Lucifer that looks like the hunk on the Netflix show, and then I saw this thing? One of the Dead Sea Scrolls interprets them as angels. Late sections of the Book of Enoch interprets them as class of celestial beings who don't sleep and guard the throne of God. Whatever this thing or things are, it sounds and looks absolutely horrifying. How could you paint that on a ceiling? I would just give up and paint wings and a halo as well. For real though, like that is a spaceship of some sort, isn't it? I mean, I understand the times, maybe the science wasn't there, but this thing is straight out of a sci-fi novel.